Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Suzanne and Sarah YouTube channel. We are doing a replay of our Private Money Lending 101 meetup that we held last week in June 2025, and we have so much information for you. So we'll be running through it because we forgot to record it, except on Facebook Live. So you do have that if you want to hear all the commentary from all of our attendees. You're welcome to check that out. But we'll just run through quickly so you get all the juicy content right here. So first of all, we are Suzanne and Sarah.
Hi.
We are realtors here in beautiful sunny Bend, Oregon with Realty One Group Discovery. And we also operate the Central Oregon Investor Network, which brings together investors not only from Central Oregon, but from all over the country to learn from one another, share resources, and create more freedom in our lives through passive income from real estate investments. So if you are not already on our weekly top picks email list, then you need to click that QR code right there on your screen and join us, because we send out Ben's best real estate investment deals to you straight to your inbox every single week with our own candid commentary of why we think it's a good deal, why we think the seller might be selling, whether they're motivated. And we send out things for short-term rentals, long-term rentals, midterm rentals, house hacks, flips, creative financing, all kinds of fun stuff that you are not going to want to miss. So snap that QR code. You also have our contact information here if you ever want to get a hold of us. We are just one phone call, email, or text away, or DM. All right, so we are talking about Private Money Lending 101, and this is near and dear to my heart because I have been learning about private money lending myself over the last year. I am now a very experienced private money lender. Also, still learning, haven't done it all, right? We're always still learning, even as investors. So generally, we go through our agenda, we do some introductions, and then we'll dive right into private money lending since y'all are here. So I'll talk about why lending, why you would want to lend, how to start, what makes a smart deal, how to protect your capital, and why you might want to consider the PRIMO advantage, which is PRIMO stands for Private, P-R-I, Money, M-O, PRIMO. And this is our education company where we are teaching people how to be awesome passive income generating lenders to other investors who are doing great deals. And we have created a community where you can be connected directly with great operators, so investors who are doing good deals, multiple deals, and who have lots of funding opportunities to securely invest your funds and get really good returns. And then next steps, of course, some direction on how to take action. So diving right in, we generally talk about, who's here, where you're from, whether you're currently in a 9-to-5 and currently lending. And the reason we wanted to know if you're currently in a 9-to-5 is so many people come to us to invest in real estate because they're looking to real estate as a way to get out of the corporate grind. And we'll talk about why it's important to decide what your strategy is and what you have to invest. Do you have time to invest? Do you have money to invest? Those are two of the three crucial components that you'll need to invest when you are a real estate investor, whether you're doing your own projects or funding somebody else's. So my story, many of you already know this, but if you don't, I was at Adidas and Teva, the sandal company, for 15 years. And early on in my career, I read the 4-Hour Workweek and discovered the amazing power of passive income. And so essentially the Cliff Notes version of the book is that you start a business, delegate everything, and retire on a beach. And, while your passive income just flows into your bank account. So obviously, definitely wanted to sign up for that and realized that real estate investing was a business that I could generate passive income. So my husband and I started buying investment properties in Portland while we were still renters. We bought a duplex in Portland, fixed it up, rented out the first unit before the mortgage payment was due. And by the time we rented out the second unit, we had our first passive income checks and we were hooked. So I was still working my full-time job, but I got licensed as a realtor because I wanted to share all of this great knowledge that I had gained on my own pre-Bigger Pockets. and help other people do the same, because I knew a lot of folks in the corporate world who wanted to also get out of the grind. So I left Adidas once, thought I was going to do real estate full time when I left, and just was not the right timing. I didn't have the foundation built that I needed in order to make that leap. So I actually went back and focused on foundation building. So I juiced my W-2 while I was there, and we'll talk more about that as we get into today's discussion. Then we house hacked for 3 years. So we turned a home that was far too big for the two of us into a house that had an ADU. So we lived in the basement beneath a family of 6 for about 3 years. And when someone else is paying your mortgage and all of your housing costs, essentially by house hacking, it's really easy to save money. So we started buying short-term rentals in Central Oregon in 2018. And I wanted to live in Central Oregon and thought I would have to retire to get here, but I got here a lot sooner than I thought. So when I got here, I started the Central Oregon Investor Network. I was still double dipping, so I was still working at Teva while I was building up the real estate business here in Central Oregon. And then I finally left corporate for good in November 2022. And over the last year, as you know, we've been building our real estate business for many years, but over the last year have become a private money lender, and I've done a lot of different deals, a lot of different structures, and I'm excited to be sharing what I've learned with all of you today. So why do we invest in real estate, right? Passive income. Everyone who comes to us is like, I want passive income. How do I get this elusive passive income? I want to get out of my W-2 job, or have more time with my family, or be able to travel more. Whatever your why is, passive income is how you fuel that. So that is the general desire. That is what people are wanting when they're coming to us for real estate investing. And there are different levels of passive. So this is me at one of our rental properties that we bought. It was a fixer, barely financeable. That's kind of where we were able to add value and find our niche. So does this look passive to you? Wheelbarrowing a pile full of bricks? Yeah, probably not. That was a lot of hard labor. I'm smiling, but it might be a fake smile. So, not exactly passive. I think what most people have in mind when they're thinking passive income is like hanging out on your paddleboard on the beach at Elk Lake here in Central Oregon or somewhere else. We're looking for the true passive income. And this is what takes time if you're really going to be building up your portfolio, because generally most people start and they're putting in elbow grease to begin. So, there's a time and a place for both in our lives, and we just have to decide, what do we have more of to invest? Money to learn quickly and essentially leapfrog all the DIY stuff and like get to the end goal faster, or maybe you don't have as much money at this time, but you have a lot of time to invest, in which case you may be wheelbarrowing bricks to the dumpster. And there's, of course, an in-between. So you just have to decide where you're at in your life, what you have more to invest of, time or money, and then invest accordingly. So want to talk about the passive income continuum. And this is really the time versus money. And these are some of the very common investment strategies that people employ when they become investors. And sometimes this is actually like the progression that people take. So the flip, this is going from most active to most passive. The flip is going to be the most active, right? So you're buying a property like we did that is barely financeable. It's needs a lot of work, and you're going to turn it into something nice and maybe sell it or maybe rent it, in which case it then becomes a BRRRR. It could become a BRRRR if you refinance and repeat. And maybe then it becomes a long-term rental. So you have, year leases or something like that, folks living in the property, or maybe slightly more passive is a short-term rental, because generally there you're probably hiring a property manager or a co-host, someone to help you with that property and keep it running smoothly for you. House hacking, definitely more passive once you've got the division of spaces set up. And then private money lending is super passive. When you get to analyze the deal, and it's probably one of these earlier deals, right? So somebody else is doing the flip, or they're doing the BRRRR, or they're doing the long-term or short-term rental, but you're analyzing their deal and deciding if you are going to fund it with that real estate securing your funds. And then finally, we have syndication. So syndication is just basically where you're sending money to people who are doing bigger deals. These are generally large multi-unit residential or commercial projects. And there will be general partners and limited partners, and you'll be investing your money for a specified return. And you're not doing anything other than really just sending them the check and hopefully collecting yours. So that is the continuum of most active to most passive in terms of income from real estate. So let's talk about Joe. Joe is a former coworker of mine at Adidas who called me a few weeks back and was just at the end of his rope. He's been at the company for 18 years. He's set himself a goal of sticking it out for 20. I don't know why, but sometimes we just set ourselves these goals, these milestones, right? Well, when he called me, here's what he said. He said, "Suzanne, this place is sucking the soul out of me. I don't even know if I can do another couple weeks, truly. Like, I am putting in crazy hours every single week. I'm doing more than I need to. But I'm done. Like, I gotta find a way out of here. This is just like, I don't even want to get up in the morning, really," is what Joe said to me. And it was just sad because I could relate to it. I had been there, just feeling like you're on the hamster wheel every single day, the same thing in a different format, email overflowing, fire drills, meetings upon meetings, meetings about meetings, all the things that we love about corporate, right? Preparing for your performance review or your 90-day plan, whatever. So yeah, he was just feeling like he was grinding, and he called to talk about real estate investing. That's what he was looking for. Because what do you think is Joe's problem? Well, Joe does not have a plan B. Everything rides on his corporate paycheck that gets deposited into his account every 2 weeks. He has no passive income. He's got no fallback plan. And that's a vulnerable place to be. I know a lot of us think that corporate jobs offer security, but in many cases, if you're not paying attention, it actually makes you more vulnerable because you got to stick it out even if you don't like it, because you need that paycheck to fuel your lifestyle. So, what is Joe's solution? Joe's solution is to use his paycheck to buy his freedom. And that was really my advice to him, is like, Joe, you got to turn your corporate golden handcuffs into financial freedom assets that produce passive income for you, because this is really what you need. You need to be investing all of those juicy little things that they use to keep you sticking around for the next 2 years so you hit your 20-year mark. You need to use those for your benefit, not just stacking it up or spending it or whatever. There's a lot of things that can help buy your freedom. So what are some of those golden handcuffs that we have in corporate? You've got your salary, comes every 2 weeks, maybe every month. You've got your bonus. A lot of people count on that bonus and they've spent it before it even hits their bank account. Well, maybe you should mentally spend it on a down payment or some renovation funds or a private money lending opportunity, ideally, if you want true passive income, to help you make more passive income. You can always tap into your 401k. Your administrator rules will vary, but at least in some companies, you can borrow against your 401k with no penalty for up to 6 months. So if you find a 3 to 6 month private money lending deal, you can borrow that money, put it back, and make some money on the side. You also have stock options or restricted stock units, RSUs, long-term incentive plans, or deferred compensation. There's lots of different terms for all these things. Just depends on where you work. And there's other things. Of course, like a lot of us own our own homes, so we have home equity that we can tap into. Lots of opportunities and ways that we can juice that paycheck and those golden handcuffs to really buy our freedom. So the story of Joe, he needs to invest his money to buy back his time. So he can go the real estate route. It's going to be pretty active to start. He was thinking about a flip. He could do the stock market, if he's really into that and wants to do a bunch of research. I know most people, who are investing in the market are, at least for 401ks and IRAs, are doing, kind of the standard index fund, target date retirement fund kind of thing. But, you do have to spend some time learning about the different options in the stock market if you're going to invest. And then private money lending is actually really passive. All you have to know is how to underwrite a deal, how to analyze a deal, and be connected to the right people doing good deals, and you can get yourself some really nice returns. So Joe's solution, he needs to juice his W-2. And we talked about ways that he can do that. He can spend those next 2 years, get into his 20 years, just taking every last bit of what he can from his Adidas paycheck and putting it towards something that's going to buy him his freedom. So draining that W-2 dry. So using his steady income to get bank loans. That's a huge one, you guys. This was something I was actually scared about when I was leaving corporate. I thought, oh my gosh, I'll never get another bank loan. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. There's lots of other ways. But many of us are led to believe that having a W-2 is the only way you can do it. So while you're there, use it. Use that W-2. It's way easier. Use your bonuses for down payments or rehab. Use your 401k to become a lender. Create a side project for yourself, like a live and flip or lending or both, to give you a reason to get out of bed in the morning and a reason to leave the office by 5 p.m. So you're not just giving more time than you're actually getting paid for it. Use that time to be building something for yourself and for your legacy. So what we love about private money lending is that for those of us who love to analyze deals and be looking at real estate and, just kind of into it, scrolling Zillow or Redfin at night. I know so many people do that just for fun. Like, you can still do that. You can be in the game of real estate, but not be consumed by it. Like wearing your overalls and hauling bricks and, doing all the dirty work. Someone else does that for you. So you're just helping them to fund the deal that's going to make money. So private money lending is lending, not landlording. And that's the key difference. Landlording is something that takes time and you got to know the regulations, or you got to hire a property manager who does and pay them to do that. And landlording, like, you guys, I've done it myself. I've hired it out. I've gone back to doing it myself. But nobody got time for that. It takes a long time, especially when you're filling a house and screening tenants and doing other things. Like, yeah, it's time consuming. So, and for somebody like Joe, who's working 60 plus hours a week, running on fumes, like, does he really have time for that? I don't think so. Joe needs to be lending his money so that other people can be doing good deals and paying him passive income on the back end and all the way through. So how do you lend? That's the crux. Like, okay, yeah, this sounds like a great deal. I'm earning, double-digit returns on my money and it's secured by real estate. That sounds pretty cool. But how do I do that? Well, you got to find people doing deals. Okay, where do you find them? You find them at things like this, like we host. So our monthly meetups. You find them at real estate investing associations, which are just another fancy word for people getting together to talk about real estate. Maybe they're in your community, your neighbors. Maybe somebody on your street is doing a project or, doing something fun and new. Or maybe you meet somebody at the gym who is doing some kind of real estate investing and you think, oh, yeah, well, I've got funds and they've got the skills. So let's put our two resources together so that we can help each other both win. Maybe you have family that's into real estate investing and they're doing projects and you want to help fund their their endeavors. Then also realtors are a great resource. We always know people that are doing deals and looking for funding. Facebook groups, that's another place, but I will say, like, it can be very overwhelming unless you are paying for coaching and you're in a specific paid private group, because otherwise you're just going to get inundated with a bunch of spammy stuff. You're not going to know who's a really good operator and not. And if you're just like meeting people on Facebook and funding their deals, like, ooh, good luck. Like, that sounds a little scary. Unless, like I said, you're in a paid coaching group with a private community and you know these people are and know of them, and they have a solid reputation as being good borrowers and stewards of your money. So how to lend? You got to know your funding sources. So we talked about a lot of these already with regards to corporate funding sources. So your salary, your stock options, your bonus, deferred compensation, those types of things. And then, if you're self-employed or retired, if you're retired, you may have RMDs, so required minimum distributions. Maybe you have a Roth IRA or a self-directed IRA for your Roth or your 401k that you can be tapping those funds, investing, and putting all of the earnings back into that self-directed IRA. And if it's a Roth, you're not paying any tax on the gain, which is huge way to really bump up the value of your Roth IRA with no tax consequences. You can always use your cash savings, but maintain your emergency fund. Maybe you're in a place in your life where you're expecting an inheritance or you've already got one. And then, of course, we already talked about too, HELOC or equity that you have in another property is another great way to, fund a deal for somebody else. So essentially, how do you lend? Well, you find a borrower and you figure out your funding source and you lend them money. You wire money and you sign contracts. And it really is as simple as that on paper. But like we said, you got to find your good borrowers and you've got to source your funds and figure out where you're going to make the most bang for your buck and where you can put some of those corporate golden handcuff tools to use for you. So you got to choose. Do you want to be truly passive, private money lending, or do you want to be active, doing flips and getting dirty and living in the chaos and the drywall dust and the sheeting and, just never having a clean house? Those are pretty much the two options. Of course, there's a middle ground as well, but, we're here to talk to you about private money lending because we've done it both ways. And I will tell you from experience, it's definitely more rewarding to get that nice wire into your bank account. And it's like instantaneous and beautiful and really pretty easy. All you have to do is provide some documentation and you're pretty much earning money. So you can lend DIY style. You can learn how to do it yourself. There's not a lot of great books out there on this, but there's some resources. Or you can let us bring the deals to you, which is why PRIMO, Private Money Lending Academy, is really the ultimate passive investment strategy. And that is because we are connecting you with vetted borrowers, people who are doing good deals, people who are doing multiple deals a month, who need funding every single month because they're doing good deals. They're finding great opportunities that have a good spread. And we'll talk about what a good spread looks like, because we're going to talk about smart deals. So you got to know your terms in private money lending. The first one you got to know is ARV, after repair value. This is something you need to have at least 2 of the 5 numbers here. Your borrower generally should be giving you their ARV. You should assume that it's going to be optimistic. So they will be giving you what they hope they can get out of it, maybe what somebody has said on the high end of the range that they could sell the property for in the future. So always take that number with a grain of salt and then run your own ARV. And you do that using the tools available to you. So you've got Redfin, you've got Zillow, you've got Realtor.com, you've got, you can be looking for your own comps. As a realtor, we have other tools that we use. And also, like if you're using tools like PropStream, PropWire, so many different places to find a valuation. So you need to run your own numbers as well. And hopefully that number is, hopefully it's close to the borrower's ARV, but generally it's going to be a little bit lower and more conservative, which is what you want when you're underwriting a deal, because you want to make sure there's still enough room for everybody to make money. Then there's some other options to get after repair value. So you can get an appraisal, which you're going to pay for. You can get a broker price opinion, which is another thing you'll pay for, but they're cheaper than an appraisal. Or if you know great realtors like Sarah and I, you can ask us to run a CMA for you. And for the clients that are using us consistently, those are free. We don't charge for those. So that's super helpful if you have a good relationship with a realtor, or maybe your borrower can get some of these things. And that's the other thing too, is you can ask your borrower to pay for some of these things. If you don't just want to trust their ARV and your own experience running comps, ask them to pay for an appraisal or a BPO, or get a CMA from the realtor that they're planning to use when they flip and sell the property. Then loan to value is the next most important term. So after you've got your ARV, then you need to know your loan to value. Higher loan to value is riskier. Lower is safer for the lender. And if you think about that loan to value, when we're talking about banks and traditional mortgages, a lot of people, the common wisdom is, banks want 20% down. So that's 80% loan to value, right? Because you're putting 20% down as your skin in the game. A lower loan to value, say 50-50, is even safer for the bank, because that means either the property is worth more than what you're paying for it, or you're putting more of your own skin in the game. Then another one to know is points. Points are what banks call origination fees. So if you've bought your own house, or you've looked at some lender terms sheets, you'll see points on there a lot of times. These are the things that a lot of buyers are buying down right now with conventional mortgages, buying down points. So essentially you're buying down interest rate. But from a lender standpoint, we like points because we get paid if we charge points as soon as the loan closes. So you can increase your return on investment right out of the gate by charging a point or two on the loan amount. So say you're lending $100,000 and you charge 2 points, that's $2,000 right in your pocket just for sending the money. So we think that's a great way to help increase your returns. And then lien position. This one is really important. This is your seniority in the deal as the lender. So senior or first position is always best, just because you're the first one that's going to get paid in case things go south, which is rare, but it can happen. This is why you have good documents, attorney drafted documents from PRIMO or someone else that help you spell out what happens if in the worst case scenario. If you want to do second position loans, absolutely is a good opportunity. They're just slightly riskier. And in some states like Texas, the first position lien holder can often wipe out the second. So they can be somewhat meaningless in some states, Texas being one of the more challenging states to be a second position lien holder. And, you got to learn at least the basics of, lien positions and your strength in those positions based on each state that you might be lending. So definitely pays to do some searching and understanding those things. Third position and beyond is generally not recommended. Third position, an example of that would be like a HELOC. That's not something that private money lenders often do, just because of the lien position, the potential risk. But there are definitely banks that do it. And, but as a private money lender, we don't generally recommend anything beyond second position unless you're very experienced or it's a super amazing deal and you have confidence in your borrower to repay. And then finally, you want to know what your borrower's exit strategy is. Are they going to wholesale the property? So just basically contracting with the seller and then assigning that to somebody else and you both get paid quickly. That one's going to be the quickest. Maybe they're going to wholesale it. So they're contracting with the seller and then using a realtor to sell it on the market to an end buyer and basically connecting the original seller to the end buyer and taking a piece of profit out of the middle. Sometimes that's also called a novation. Or are they going to do a flip? Flip's probably going to be like wholesale. You might be able to get in and out quickly, like a month, 3 months. Flip, I would say at least 6 months. Burr, lease options, these are more like your 12, 18, 24 months kind of plays. Lease options too, we sometimes see private money deals for as long as 5 years. I mean, they can be even longer, 10 years. And other strategies like buy and hold. Just depends on what strategy your borrower is employing and what you want as your repayment time frame. So you got to know, do you want your money back and you want to turn it multiple times a year? Do you just want it locked up and working for you for a few years and you don't have to think about it? That's what you have to decide. So we're going to talk about the vanilla deal framework. So baseline criteria, max loan amount should be about 75% of as is value. And these are our criteria. So yours may be very, very different, but this is just generally what we talk about because this is the majority of what deals are happening out there these days. They're pretty common. People are finding these deals, closing these deals, and needing funding for these deals. So 1 to 4 units, residential only. Because why? Because it's a lot easier to find an end buyer or a tenant for those properties than it is for commercial property. Okay. In many cases, we think that 100% rehab funding is totally fine and safe as long as the deal supports it. The deal has to support the rehab with the ARV and the LTV, right? So 65 to 80% of ARV would be max loan amount, but 80% would only be for really experienced borrowers or some of those like amazing deals that are not vanilla. But your ideal comfort zone, your very vanilla deal is going to be about 70% of ARV. So here's some example terms that you could set up for a deal like this. So 6-month interest only balloon. Maybe you want interest only payments every month, or maybe you just want to get paid your 6 months at maturity. You can decide, do you want the monthly cash flow? Do you just want a nice big fat check at the end? Maybe you want to have your note extendable to 12 months if the deal warrants it or if the borrower warrants it. But generally, the goal for a lot of folks that we're working with is, to turn their money twice a year. So really trying to stick with those 6-month turns. And those are totally doable. We see deals like that all the time. Okay, so just an example of how this might play out. Somebody finds an off-market flip and they're like, oh, this is a sweet deal. They need $100K and it's worth, their ARV is $150K. So it would be 66% loan to value. You would want first position here because, if you're funding the purchase, then you would get first position. 6-month term, 12% paid monthly interest-only payments, and 2 points paid at closing. So what does this actually mean? Like how much are you making for 6 months with 12%, 2 points up front? Well, your total return, you get $2,000 right out the gate at closing with those points. You get $6,000 over 6 months, which is $8,000 or 16% annualized. And that is not bad for a deal that keeps your capital working for you without having to move wheelbarrows full of bricks, you guys. Yeah, the ROI on that property, I mean, at the end when I sell it, it will be in the high double digits. But, the time that I spent on that, like, it was a lot. It was a lot of time, money, time that I wasn't spending with friends, doing fun things. I was moving wheelbarrow loads of bricks. All right, so I'm going to talk about a killer deal. This was my first private money deal. And so, this is probably what got me hooked on it and excited about doing more of it and teaching all of you how to do this. So it was in Kentucky. The purchase price, I know it seems crazy. You're like, are you missing a zero? But the purchase price was $25,000. I actually overfunded. So I gave the investor, or lent the investor, $28,000 for holding costs and to continue their marketing, because I wanted to be able to lend to them again. Ultimately, they were able to sell this property, and the ARV they gave me was about $65,000. Actually, I think they told me it was 55, but it ended up selling for 65. And it closed at the end of last year. I paid a $150 closing fee with these folks. And we structured it as a JV deal. So basically, I had some additional upside on this deal. So I had first lien position. My minimum profit on a $28,000 loan was $6,000, which is 21%. So that's just like a no-brainer right out of the gate. Plus, I got to share in the profit upside. So I got 30% of the profit for the amount between what I invested, the $28,000, and what it sold for, which was basically $65,000. So my takeaway from this deal was my final ROI, 39% ROI, $11,000 profit in 4 months. That was a 5-figure profit on a 5-figure investment. So I think most of us would probably sign up for this deal, especially like first lien position, low barrier to entry, 28 grand. That was a killer deal and a really fun one. Got me hooked, you guys. And then my second private money deal, also in Kentucky. A lot of folks that we know that are in our network are doing deals in Kentucky and Indiana, North Carolina, South Carolina, Ohio, Michigan, all over. But yeah, this one just happened to be in Kentucky, and these folks were doing a wholesale. So they purchased the property. I helped my funds help them buy the property. I lent. They bought it for $217,500. I lent $230,000 to cover a few small repairs, paint, and maybe HVAC or something. I can't remember. And then they sold it for $280,000 2.5 months later on the open market, and it was worth over $300,000. So they sold it slightly under market to get it sold quickly. And this again, I had first lien position because I was funding the purchase. I got 12% interest on this with a 3-month minimum. I baked that in for myself because I didn't want to have to calculate like daily interest and all that stuff. So ultimately, at the end of this one, I made $6,900 on a $230,000 loan, but I did that in 2.5 months, you guys. So that's 13% annualized, and that's definitely higher than what we're seeing in the stock market, and certainly higher than many other investments, and a lot less risky than something like crypto or whatever that has crazy returns. So your lender profile is essentially what determines what deals meet your goals. And this is what you have to figure out if you're going to be a private money lender. This is what we help all of our PRIMO students figure out, is their lender profile. So you got to figure out what your passive income goal is. Do you want it to replace your W-2? Do you just want to have some extra spending money? Do you want it for your travel fund? Do you want it for your kids' college fund? Like, what's your goal? You got to set a goal here. Where do you want to lend? Do you want to lend only where you live because you know the market and the players, and you only feel comfortable like lending in the community where you're at? Or are you open to lending all over the country? What kind of funds do you have available? Which of those golden handcuffs or other funding sources can you tap into to fund these deals? What property types are you interested in funding? Would you fund land? Land can be tricky because it's not as valuable in terms of collateral as a structure on land. But there's other ways to get around that and to make it more secure. But do you only want to do residential or commercial, single family, multifamily? What exit strategies do you want to fund? Do you want to help people doing flips or lease options or short-term rentals or wholesales? Like, maybe you don't care what the exit strategy is, but it's helpful to at least kind of hone in, because that's going to determine the time frame of how long your money is going to be invested. And that's what we've got duration on here. Really, the exit strategy determines the duration of how long your money is out with that particular borrower. Then you got to figure out what your minimum interest rate is going to be. What's the minimum ROI you'll accept from a borrower? Do you want to charge points and put some money in your pocket right away? What lien position levels are you comfortable with? Would you do a second lien, or are you like, nope, first lien only, not even going to go second? And then deal structure. Do you want to do some of these fun non-vanilla things like sharing the upside and doing a joint venture, which is a JV with somebody? Or do you just want straight interest only payments over a certain period of time or at maturity? So figuring those things out will help you determine which deals are good deals for you. And it differs truly by person because everyone's goals and needs are different. So what we do when leads come in for different loan opportunities, we just have people answer a series of very brief questions just so we get a sense for the deal. And this helps us either move forward with asking more detailed questions or just whack the deal right off the top. So property type, is it a single family, multifamily, duplex? What's the purchase price? What is the borrower's ARV? What is their planned exit strategy and their project timeline? How much do they need in terms of funding, and what lien position they're offering? So those are easy questions that most any borrower can answer right off the top, and then we can get it down into the nitty gritty after we have initially evaluated the deal. Okay, so all of this sounds great, right? You're earning really good returns. Sometimes you're earning 12%, sometimes you're earning 39%, just depends on the deal. But the question that I know a lot of you are asking yourselves is, all right, but is it safe? Well, here's my question to you. Is the stock market safe? How do you feel with your money in the stock market? I know for a lot of people, from the beginning of the year until now, like a lot of people aren't even looking at their retirement accounts or their brokerage accounts because things have been so volatile. Well, if your money had been tied up on a private money loan, you wouldn't be afraid to look. Like, honestly, we look at our private money lending spreadsheet pretty frequently because it's exciting, because we know that money is coming back to us with babies, and babies in the terms of return on investment and making money through interest. So you have to decide what is safe is to you, but there are a lot of ways you can protect your capital in real estate lending, much more so than how you can protect your money in the stock market, which is like sort of up to the whim of the fund manager or the board of directors or the CEO, you know what I mean? Like the C-suite, the leadership of that company. You don't have any control over that. Yeah, you might get voting rights, but like you're in the sea of thousands, if not more, of people. Whereas with peer-to-peer private money lending, you can protect yourself through a lot of clearly written, attorney reviewed documents. The first one being the promissory note. So this is the private document between the borrower and the lender only that details out all of those things we talked about. How much you're lending, how much you're charging for interest or points, how long it goes for, what your lien position is. All that juicy stuff is in the promissory note, right? If you have any upside on the deal as well. And then the mortgage is what gets recorded publicly, and it references the promissory note without revealing all of the details. It really will just say, here is the amount that is owed to X lender on this property, but it will reference that private promissory note. Sometimes you can also get a personal guarantee. So this is where the borrower will put up their own assets as additional collateral to secure the deal and make you feel more confident in lending to them. So it's somewhat rare, but we definitely have had people offer to give a personal guarantee. And then there's an assignment of rent. So if you know this property is already a rental or it's going to be a rental, you can have your borrower sign an assignment of rents document that says that if they default, that the rents and leases get assigned to you as the lender, as soon as they default. So then those tenants become your tenants, those rents become your rents. So that's another way you can protect yourself. And then finally, there's something called a confession of judgment that is rare and unenforceable in some states, including Oregon, but still the psychological power of having your borrower sign something that basically preemptively says that they are guilty of defaulting before you've even lent them the money is something that I think can help mitigate the risk of that happening, because they're admitting to guilt, and it makes it a lot easier for you to pursue foreclosure if the worst case scenario happens. So again, like I said, it's not enforceable in every state, but it's something that psychologically can impact the borrower and help them understand like just how serious this is. They're borrowing money from you and they're promising in the promissory note to pay it back. So lots of ways to protect yourself. There's even more than this, but those are the basics. And your seniority matters. So being first position is obviously best. Second position is second best. And anything below that is not recommended. Again, like we said, unless you know the borrower, they're very experienced, unless the deal is just juicy enough that you're willing to put your money out there, and it's slightly more of a gamble, but you still have all those documents that we just talked about to protect your capital. Another way you can protect your capital is to cross-collateralize on another property. And so what does that mean? That's a big word. It means that you put a lien on another piece of property that borrower owns, ideally outright, so that then you can be in first position on something that they own. So when would you do this? If you're less than second position, or even if you're second position and you don't want to be, you can cross-collateralize on something else just to make sure that you're first position and you'll get paid back if you have to pursue getting your funds. Another reason you might do this is if you're lending on raw land, and raw land certainly has value, but not as much value as the structures on the land. So cross-collateralizing on somebody's personal residence, for example, if you're lending on raw land, like a development deal, is one option that you could consider. Or if the ARV or LTV are not meeting your expectations, like we talked about with that vanilla deal playbook. Or if you're dealing with an inexperienced borrower who does have other assets that you can loan against. So there's lots of ways to do this, lots of reasons you might want to consider it. And it's certainly something worth a conversation with your borrower if you're just feeling like, ooh, I don't know, like not totally sure that the property can sustain this, but if you have another asset I can put a lien on, then we're good. Then you've got another option. So what's the worst case that happens? Okay, so we'll just walk through it from the beginning, right? So you're all excited, you're funding this loan, you get your points, put the money in your pocket at closing, you're getting some monthly interest-only rate payments, and then something happens and your borrower defaults, and then you have to foreclose on the property. So there's some very real consequences of that, like attorneys and paperwork and time and all the things, right? But your attorney fees should be very clearly stated in your promissory note about, like, if you're the prevailing party, the borrower should be paying your attorney fees, right? And the worst case is you got your points, you got some monthly interest-only payments, and you get the house at the end, and maybe the rents if you have that assignment of rents document. So can it happen? Yes. Is it rare? Yes. And you use all of these attorney drafted forms, or sometimes even escrow drafted forms for promissory notes and mortgages to protect your capital and protect against the worst case scenario, which is default, which means you end up with the house instead of all the money you were expecting. So you have to decide, is it safe? And let's just go back to the story of Joe, right? So, Joe is working 60-hour weeks. He's super burned out. He is just trying to get through the next performance review, get his next bonus. Now he knows he needs to juice his W-2. Like, what do you think Joe has time for really to start solving his challenge, which we determined was the lack of a plan B. Joe needs to start building up a passive income stream. What do you think Joe has time for? Does he have time to learn to become a private money lender and earn passive income? Well, I don't know how many hours in the day Joe can get away and attend a bunch of Zoom meetings and surf Facebook groups and go to nightly networking groups and try to find, prospective borrowers doing good deals and figure out how to, actually put together documents to help him lend safely. Joe doesn't have a lot of time. I think he might be better off paying someone to help him and bring deals to him, because he wants to jump in, but he has some really big questions he needs answered. Like, how much time is this going to take? How do I find those trusted borrowers with the limited time I have? How do I analyze deals if this is not what I do every day, day in and day out? How do I know when I've got a good deal? And what documents do I use? Those are the big questions that every private money lender who's even considering lending should be asking themselves. And all of those questions boil down to, how much time is this really going to take me to analyze deals, find borrowers, get the right documents, right? So this is where the passive income versus active income really comes into play. If you truly want passive income, you got to do what I do. I pay people to help me leapfrog ahead, skip all the expensive mistakes, and get to my goal faster. I have money to invest. I prefer to use my time doing other things, like building up our real estate business and traveling and being outdoors. So, but at another time in my life, less than a decade ago, I was choosing a different path because my time money scale was in a different space, right? I had more time than I had money, and I was willing to invest it differently. I was willing to sacrifice my evenings, my weekends, my vacations to do things like dropping chimneys and wheelbarrowing bricks to the dumpster. We used to have dump dates. It was really fun. We sometimes still do. Now it's tradition. So, you guys, this is why we are introducing PRIMO Private Money Lending Academy, because we want to help you get to where you want to be faster, more quickly, more efficiently, and using your time to do the things that are important to you. Because if there's one thing that both Sarah and I have realized over our time working together and figuring out, what we really value, it's like time with people, time doing the things that we love and doing that with the people that we love. And I was reading a book recently called The Psychology of Money, and the definition of wealth that they talk about in that book is being able to do what you want, when you want, with whoever you want. And that is the true feeling of freedom and wealth. And that's what we're trying to create through passive income. So PRIMO is built for your freedom and backed by strategy. It is private lending done for you, so you don't have to worry about those big questions of, how much time is this going to take? How am I going to find borrowers? How am I going to get these documents? I don't even know where to start, because we're bringing real deals, real returns, and real support directly to you. So let's talk about what you are getting. First of all, going back to this quote, you get to be in the game of real estate without being consumed by it. And that is really the key here. Flipping is life consuming. Sarah can tell you that. She just finished like 6 months ago, and she's, embarking on another live and flip. But, you get to make money without having to put in the true sweat equity. Yes, there's time that you have to invest learning how to do it, but when you're paying someone to teach you and hold your hand and introduce you to borrowers, you're leapfrogging a lot of that stuff and moving right into being the passive income earner, the private money lender, instead of wannabeing one of those things. So let's say Joe is like, yep, guys, having a flip, maybe I'll do that, just like a live-in flip, but I want my money to be working for me now. I just got my fat bonus. I'm if I leave it in my bank account, I'm going to spend it on something stupid. So I'm in, I want to join Primo. What can I expect from you all? Well, Joe is going to get 2 exclusive deal opportunities that align with his unique lender profile, that lender profile that we talked about earlier that answers all those questions of what are your goals, where do you want to invest, all those things. We provide attorney-reviewed templates, guides, and checklists. Joe gets vetted borrower introductions and community connects so that he can be lending sooner than later. Like when I say sooner than later, I mean within 90 days of joining Primo. He's getting strategy support and deal review, and we're making sure that he is ready to lend. When he hits the go button, we are bringing him those 2 exclusive deals at a minimum that he can fund and be on his way to building up his plan B. What does Joe need to get to us? That was the first question on Joe's list of big questions, right? How much time is this going to take? Well, Joe, we know you're a busy dude. We want your commitment to participate weekly, either live or on a replay, 1 hour. We're doing 8 different modules to learn how to be a private money lender from beginning to end, introducing you to the concepts, the processes, figuring out how to analyze deals. So we just need you for 1 hour a week. I think everybody has an hour a week to give to this, right? We need Joe to be open to evaluating live deals. We will bring them to him on those 1 hour calls weekly. We'll send them to him as well, but we want people to understand how to evaluate and analyze these deals for themselves too, so that then when they've graduated from the academy or they're staying part of the community and connecting with other borrowers and lenders, they know how to help other people recognize and pounce on great deals. Timely communication when deals come in. I mean, this is super important, especially when we're working with folks that are doing wholesales, like where the real estate investment world moves fast. Deals come and go quickly. You've got to be able to commit quickly, and that means you need to be able to analyze those deals quickly. So I need you to have timely communication and be just willing to ask questions and learn by doing. That is so important to be open to that. The other thing that Joe gets, he gets unlimited access to all of our attorney reviewed documents, unlimited deals he can fund. Once those borrower introductions are made, that is a connection for life, right? Like we're here to help people make those connections and have unlimited deal flow and private money lending opportunities for as long as they want to continue earning passive income. And yeah, that's exactly what they get, is an unlimited passive income stream when you know what you're doing and you know who's doing good deals and you've got the funds ready to go. The sky is truly the limit. So just a recap of what Joe or you will get with Primo. You get personalized strategy and support, your custom lender profile, which is super important, plus 3 months of expert coaching, and those 8 modules that I talked about that that outline private money lending from beginning to end. You get plug and play tools. So you get those attorney review documents, real-time deal analysis, proven curriculum. So those 8 learning modules that you can watch, replay, and just integrate into your overall process to build your lending confidence. Vetted deals and vetted borrowers. This is by far the most important and valuable aspect of what we're offering here at Primo. You're connected to a trusted operator network. These folks are doing multiple deals a month. They have plenty of opportunity for funding. And the other thing you get, because we pay for coaching, you get access to our coaches too, who are all amazing operators. They're a lot of the people that we will be introducing you to who are doing these great deals, and they're doing creative deals, you guys, like seller financing, sub 2. So they're getting deals that are way better than, on market, your kind of standard deals that a lot of folks are finding. So they're finding great deals. And you get to meet some of these people in person in October. So 2 tickets to an in-person investing mastermind joined by yours truly, Suzanne and Sarah. So we are here. We are building up the Primo community. The value of this is truly unlimited, but we got to put a price on it. It's $59,000, almost $60,000 of value that you're getting, with all these documents, these connections, the modules to learn private money lending from beginning to end in 90 days, you guys. Like, that's so fast. Through July, we're offering this to our founding members for $99.97. That's less than $10,000. Most of our cohort is saying, okay, like, my first deal will pay for my tuition and then some. Like, yeah, this is a total no-brainer. And after July, it will be going up, you guys. So going up to just $29,997, still an amazing deal. You're getting so much more value than that. But we really want to jumpstart the Primo community, get people into the private money lending space, doing good deals with good operators, create the synergy in the flywheel that keeps the deals going for everyone. Because guess what? When you win, the borrower wins. When the borrower wins, you win. And we all win when we work together. And that is what Primo is really all about, is creating wins all around, so that everyone is making more money, so they're loaning more money, making more deals, and keeping things rolling. This is like us fueling the economy, you guys. So what is next? We've given you a ton of information, and you're probably thinking, okay, where do I start? Well, here is your 3-step action plan, okay? First, you have to decide: wheelbarrows of bricks, Elk Lake Beach on your stand-up paddleboard. You decide, passive or active income. Which do you want at this point in your life? Next, number 2, check your funding sources. Where can you pull money to start lending to people? Is it your paycheck, your bonus, your 401k, your self-directed IRA, your home equity, your cash savings that are sitting around waiting for the next best deal to come along, but you've been sitting on it for like 18 months and haven't bought anything? Well, here's a great way to invest that money for 6 months. Invest now. Right now it's July. Invest for 6 months, get your money back right around New Year's. And when do you find the best deals to pounce on in the real estate investing space? Winter. So you'll have your money back in winter, and then you can buy that place. Or maybe you'll just keep rolling on the private money lending because it's so freaking easy. And then you want to determine your lender profile. So asking yourself those questions: what is my passive income goal? Where do I want to lend? What do I want in terms of interest rate? How long do I want my money out for? How often do I want my money to turn? And these are all things that we can help you with, because we want you to decide if Primo is right for you. And if you are at all interested in this, then let us know, because we will send you our private money lender starter kit that you get absolutely free. Some of the tools that we use in the Primo Private Money Lending Academy that you can use for yourself to get started, and just show you the value of what we offer at Primo and why you want to leapfrog ahead of everyone who is getting paralysis by analysis by watching too many YouTube videos and, just like going down the rabbit hole of stuff and not taking action. That's the last thing we want. Like, we are action takers. That's what we love. That's what we do. Those are the people that we attract. And that is what we are here to do, is help you take action in 90 days. In 90 days, you can call yourself a private money lender, probably way sooner than that. So if you have questions, you know where to find us, right? You've got our contact information. And sorry, you guys, I have bonus content, okay? Here's some bonus content. Business and tax strategy stuff. These are big questions that a lot of people ask us. Can I lend from a self-directed IRA? Abso-freaking-lutely. Yes, your Roth IRA, your regular IRA. You can lend from a multitude of those self-directed accounts, and it's, just a slight little bit of extra paperwork from your self-directed IRA custodian, but totally doable and absolutely a great way to put those funds to work for you. Can I create separate lending LLC to lend from? So maybe you already have some of your own real estate, or you have an LLC. Yes, we do think that you can and should create your own lending LLC so that you can easily track your expenses, if you have any. Your Primo tuition will be a tax write-off, you guys. And then you're tracking your income and doing your tax return for that LLC specifically. And do I get to write off depreciation like I do with my properties? Generally, no. If you're a straight lender, unless you're doing a joint venture and you're an equity partner. If you are an equity partner as a part of being a private money lender, so maybe say you lend for the purchase or you lend for the down payment and you say, I want to have 10, 15, 50% equity in the property, then yes, as part owner of that property, you can take depreciation on that property. But if you're just a straight lender, so just a debt collector basically, then no, you don't have the depreciation write-off. So CPA, of course, will always be able to answer these questions in more detail, but just giving you some basics here to help you understand some of the different ramifications of private money lending and how it might work in your overall portfolio and strategy. What about insurance? Yes, you will want to make sure that your borrower has you listed as additional insured, so that if something does happen to the property, God forbid, that you are the first loss payee because you are ideally the first lender on that particular property that you've lent against. So yes, insurance required, important. Yes. All right, you guys, here is where you contact me and also Sarah for more information on PRIMO and our Private Money Lending Academy. You can click our QR code here. You can text or email me. You have all the information, and we are just so excited to have you on here. And if you are local to Bend, please join us for our Bend Power Hour. We are meeting weekly Tuesdays here in our beautiful office right in the heart of Bend, every Tuesday from 4 to 6 p.m. From 4 to 6 p.m., not noon to 1. And we've got a creative financing sub 2 expert joining us there as well. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to have you here, and please drop us your questions down in the notes below. You can hit us up for any questions, comments, and if you are interested in learning more about PRIMO or enrolling, you know where to find us. All right, thanks everyone.